Hey guys. So this video, I wanted to talk about this relationship between age and experience. And it comes up because something that I have seen on YouTube, and of course elsewhere, but YouTube is our little microcosm, right? And I'm sure a lot of you have too, and probably many of us have engaged in this sort of behavior of writing someone's opinion off on the grounds of their age and saying something like, well, you just don't have the life experience to really know what you're talking about. So, you know, get back to me when you're older or something like that. And I've definitely been guilty of this. I mean, there are certain things, certain issues where I've got a lot less respect for the opinion of an 18-year-old than I do a 35-year-old or a 40-year-old. And an example of this might be something like establishing a career. Odds are your average early 20-something knows a lot less about establishing a career than someone in their 40s or 50s. Okay, that's an example. It doesn't hold true 100%. I know plenty of people in their 40s and 50s who have never successfully established a career, nor do they have the desire to do so, etc. So these things are not guarantees, but if you wanted advice on how to have a good marriage, you'd probably ask someone who'd been married for 25 years versus someone who'd only been married for 1 or 2, right? I mean, that just makes sense. So in that sense, age and chronology are important. But the thing I wanted to point out is that this is not a guarantee. And I think sometimes we act like it's a guarantee, and it's really not fair, especially when we're talking about theology and anything related to religion. And I mean, within our own neo-pagan community, people throw things around like, well, I've been practicing Wicca for 20 years, or, well, she's a high priestess, or, well, I mean, and there's some validity to these sorts of statements, okay, right? I mean, the idea is that if you've become a high priestess, then you have some kind of experience that justifies you serving in that position, right? I mean, that's the ideal. And, you know, well, I was going to say it's relatively consistent, right? But no, I think I've met more really awful high priestesses than I have ones who are actually, I feel, qualified and worth listening to. And it's just because, like, it's the internet, right? So everyone can call themselves whatever they want. And in this age when it's not just common, but it's actually sort of expected that we establish our own traditions and our own sets of practices over time, then anyone can really do anything and call themselves a high priestess or high priest, right? So someone calling themselves that, it's not a guarantee of anything. Anyway, I think it's unfair to be dismissive of younger people and people with fewer time spent in pagan traditions, especially, you know, eclectic neo-paganism, which isn't really a tradition. I mean, the reason we choose labels like that is because we don't fit elsewhere, we don't feel inclined to fit elsewhere or something, and these categories are fluid enough that we can apply them to ourselves. I say we, I'm obviously not included in this, but generally speaking, I mean, that's a really common label, eclectic neo-pagan, right? So to say something like, I have 25 years experience being an eclectic neo-pagan, that doesn't really mean anything. Because eclectic neo-paganism isn't an established thing with rules and norms, and maybe it would be more useful to say, hey, I'm in my 40s, I think I know something about life. I don't know. That's my inclination anyway. I mean, I can say that a lot of my experience and whatever kind of expertise or lack of expertise I might have in life doesn't necessarily have a whole lot to do with how many years I've been practicing Wicca. Anyway, I see a lot of really dismissive comments aimed at younger people for expressing their opinions, and the reasoning is, well, you just don't have enough experience, or, oh, well, you're only 19 or 13 or whatever. And I'm not saying that age isn't necessarily an indicator of wisdom or experience, but it's not 100%. And telling someone, that, well, oh, you think these things because of your age, and you just don't have enough experience, and you just, you can't express an opinion. The implication beyond that is that all older people are experienced and wise. And this, of course, is not the case. And I don't think any of us would argue that. Maybe you would, I don't know. You'd be wrong. But that's the implication. When you tell a young person, well, you don't have enough experience, you don't have enough, you're not old enough, the second statement that is naturally paired with the first is that, well, I, as an older person, have the authority by virtue of my age, because older people are naturally wise and experienced. And that just doesn't make any sense. Anyway, I just don't think it's very fair. I'm probably rambling a little bit, but what I really wanted to say in this video is that I know plenty of really dumb old people. And I'm sure you do too. I know plenty of dumber young people. It's not a guarantee, and to be dismissive of someone based purely on their age, it doesn't make any sense. There's a big difference between someone who maybe they're in their 40s or 50s, but they've lived in suburbia their entire lives, and their parents aren't divorced, and they've just gone to school and started a career and had a family and blah blah blah, versus someone who, maybe they're in their early 20s, but they immigrated from a war-torn country and their parents are dead, and they've never been to college, and I don't know. Age is not necessarily indicative of lots of life experience. And furthermore, this quantifying of life experience, I don't know, necessarily works, just because we all acquire experience just by virtue of getting older. And getting older it's not a skill, it's not a talent. We all do it every year, whether we like it or not. The question of how well we do it is another one entirely. But assuming that just because you've aged, you naturally accumulate some kind of profound wisdom, I think it's problematic. So I think it might be better to say that we all accumulate different kinds of life experience. And maybe some life experiences are more relevant than others when discussing particular issues, like marriage. You wouldn't ask marriage advice from someone who'd never been married, right? Maybe you would. I don't know. I don't know that you'd get anything useful out of them. And you wouldn't ask about, how to have a long and healthy and successful career to someone who had only been in the workforce for a year or two. So in those kinds of senses, we're looking to hear from people with particular kinds of experiences. But to be dismissive of someone's religious ideas purely on the grounds of their chronological age, I just don't think is very fair. And I know I've been guilty of it. It happens, and it's something that I think is very common. But I just wanted to point it out and maybe make us all a little bit more aware. I don't think it's fair. So anyway, there you are, and I will see you next time.